Hi, and welcome to the next edition of the Rare Business Podcast. With me today, I have Sam Boonin, VP of Products from Zendesk, and he's here to talk to me today about Zendesk's latest benchmark survey about customer service around the world. First of all, can you tell me a little bit about the report and why you started it and how it's evolved over time? Because I know it's been around for a little while now. Is that right?
Yes. So we started the Zendesk benchmark in March of 2012, so it's been around for about 15 months. And originally we started it as a service for our customers where they can opt into a benchmarking service that enables them to share their key customer support metrics with their peers.
Okay.
And what we noticed, and we got more than half of our entire customer base to opt into the service. So we have over 15,000 or 16,000 companies who have opted into the benchmark. And what we realized almost immediately was that our customers really benefit from this basic level of information on how they compare.
Yep.
And the second thing we realized is that there's really interesting data, just industry data, because it's a relatively large sample, it's global, that we decided to start publishing this data publicly, which is what this benchmark is all about.
All right, fantastic. And now, can you tell me a little bit about some of the big findings that you've come up with, or that have emerged from the most recent survey? The big headlines, as it were.
Yeah. So, sort of the key metric that we track, which is almost universal, is customer satisfaction. Mm-hmm. So that's almost the main outcome metric that we have today. Are customers satisfied with the service that companies are giving? And the one thing that we're noticing on that is that customer satisfaction is on the rise. So in Q2 of 2013, it's at 81%, which is up 3 points from Q1. So that's probably the biggest individual finding that we've seen is that we're seeing a rise in customer sat.
Okay. And so what do you think is driving that upturn in customer service?
That's a really good question, and something that we're looking into. We have a couple of sort of hypotheses. We're not a research shop, so we can't really tell you for sure. The one thing that's interesting is that our measure of customer satisfaction seems to correlate with overall consumer confidence. So it seems that as the economy improves, and as consumers are more confident and more interested in spending and investing, that they're starting to be increasingly satisfied with the support that they're seeing. There are some other variations that we're seeing by industry and by country, but the one thing that we're sort of hypothesizing is that maybe customer sat is sort of in the minds of customers. The more confident they are in the economy, the happier they're going to be with the vendors that they're doing business with.
I mean, that's really interesting because it makes me think is that when an economy is really, really tight and it's not necessarily as growing as fast as people would like it to do, people are and also people's wallets are tight, as it were. They're much, much more discerning about where they spend their money, and therefore much, much more demanding about the pound or the dollar or the yen or the euro that they spend. And therefore, if you like, as confidence increases, is there a possibility that you think that actually customers may become possibly less discerning or less demanding in terms of the levels of service? So they'll be less Scrooge-like, as it were.
Yeah, I think that's possible. I think the flip side is that in the last couple years, with consumer confidence low and the economy struggling, companies understand the benefits of investing in the customer experience.
Right.
So what I'd like to say, although I don't have the data to back up, is that greater investment in customer service is leading to customer satisfaction.
Okay.
So, it's certainly easy to say that rising tide lifts all boats. When the economy is good, companies don't really need to worry about the customer experience and taking care of their customers. That is certainly true. But I also think at a certain level that what we're seeing is the result of good investments that companies are making.
Okay.
And they know that if you're competing for it's hard in a rough economic environment, it's harder to compete.
Yeah.
And differentiating on customer service is something that we clearly see as a trend. and something that certainly Zendesk customers care a lot about.
Fantastic. Now, and you also just mentioned, and I noticed from the materials that you sent to me that there are some countries are doing better than others in terms of their overall improvement. So, which countries are you seeing sort of top of the around the top of the list, and which ones are sort of actually towards the bottom end of the list too?
Well, some of your old Commonwealth countries are doing the best. So New Zealand has been consistently a top performer in the Zendesk benchmark pretty much from the beginning.
Okay.
And they came out on top this quarter as well,
okay.
With a 92% satisfaction rating. And then the top three countries, New Zealand, Canada, and Australia. And then, they've been consistent high performers, those three countries.
Okay. And are they doing anything different, do you think, to other countries? Because I think what I'm really interested in is trying to look at a piece of research and go, that's brilliant, but can I draw out some lessons from that for other people? Can we just say, actually, these countries I think are doing this, this, and this, and therefore other laggards, if you like, could actually benefit from focusing on some of these areas and learning from the experience of others. I mean, is that too complicated a question from the research to draw from the research, or do you have some ideas around that?
We see some general trends. English-speaking countries and the Nordics tend to do very well. Southern European and Middle Eastern countries and African countries tend to do poorly. Those are general trends that probably match, global perceptions.
Right.
I think if you look at New Zealand as an example, we've looked at why they consistently do better. And believe me, our Kiwi friends love the fact that every quarter they beat the Aussies, and they want to know why. I think innovation plays a big role. That at least among our customer base,
yes,
the companies that use us in New Zealand tend to be quite innovative in the way that they interact with their customers, and they're being rewarded for it. So I don't know if you can universalize that for the New Zealand economy in general or the country in general, but we see that. So as an example, we know that response time, how quickly you interact with your customers, answer questions. Yes. The faster your response time, the higher your satisfaction tends to be. And so what we see among companies in New Zealand is a real focus on making sure that they answer customers' questions very quickly, as opposed to some more traditional companies or countries where they still view customer support as a cost center and are more likely to outsource their support to a call center or a third party or something along the lines.
So there could be
that's definitely true.
A big element of that could be almost like the maturity of the industry or the firm or their level of enlightenment, let's say.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So, and I think the same is true, of the other sort of the winners, Canada and Australia.
Yeah.
Maybe with Canada, it's a sibling rivalry with the United States.
But let's hope so. And the other thing that the report seems to delve into, and I think this is, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a newer element that you're starting to build and explore, is that you're looking into the impact of mobile and self-service on the nature of customer satisfaction. Is that right?
Yeah, so clearly two trends that we see in the industry in general, and number one, customers who want to help themselves, who want to self-source information, and oftentimes will look to online communities, before they look to actual vendors themselves. Uh-huh. And then secondarily, the overall shift of consumer sort of platforms from computers to mobile devices. Okay. So we didn't want to just have opinion on that. We wanted to look at the data that we see and see what the benchmark could produce. And those were very interesting findings and very relevant for our customer base. We developed a new metric called the self-service score, which is it's a ratio of customers who are helping themselves compared to customers that are seeking out support from companies. And we found that overall the self-service score across the entire Zendesk benchmark is about 4 to 1. So what that means is about 4 times the number of customers are helping themselves versus contacting your support. And that's really valuable for our customer base because they're very comfortable in investing in ticketing and agents and customer support operational software.
Yeah.
And they're learning how to build the right knowledge base, how to build the right community, how to sort of teach their customers to help themselves. Okay. So it's a really good metric for them to be tracking.
I mean, but there are some within your survey. There are some industries that are leading on that over others. I mean, looking at some of the material you sent me, and I think media and telecoms, social media, etc. They're leading the way in a way. Is that right?
Yeah. So that's where it gets really interesting. Is how this metric differs across industries. The obvious answer there is that companies that are born in the cloud tend to do very well because their customers begin the way the customers engage with these companies is through the web. So they're more likely to go, click on a knowledge base or something along those lines than contact a ticket, which is why social media and software are the two industries that are head and shoulders above the rest in terms of the self-service score. So social media companies have almost a 10 to 1 ratio, or their self-service score is almost 10 to 1, meaning for every customer that submits a ticket, they have 10 that are engaged on their community or knowledge base. And software is about 7 to 1.
Right.
And we're seeing very similar trends.
I mean, I think what's interesting, because that, like you basically said then, is like the firms or industries that were born in the cloud are having a much easier time, if you like, developing their self-service and mobile sort of options as compared to firms that are a bit more traditional or a bit more mature. And I guess that the involved with it in that mix, as it were, there must be something to do with customer demographics in there as well.
Yeah, it obviously has to do with customer demographics. So if you look, we have a number of file sharing companies like Dropbox and Box as customers, and obviously a typical Box customer is much more, internet savvy and willing to self-serve than, let's just say a Microsoft SharePoint customer who's likely to go contact their internal IT department, as an example. So clearly the demographics of the actual customer, and the same can be said for another industry where we do very well, which is online gaming. Uh-huh. So some of the leading online gaming companies, like Rovio as an example, those customers are much more likely to, serve themselves than somebody who's, playing an Electronic Arts video game or something, where they're more likely to, engage in other ways. The flip side of that is that the consumer demands on these companies are much different. Yeah. So a lot of these companies are facing unprecedented scale. Instead of supporting, dozens or hundreds of customers, they're supporting millions of customers. Yeah. So the good news in this is that they're driving a tremendous amount of self-service. They're also driving a tremendous amount of support volume that they have to deal with as well.
Sure. Okay. Well, I mean, that all sounds, it's fascinating and really interesting, and throws up some big sort of questions and interesting sort of findings, I guess, for just both countries and also industries. And so I congratulate you on the if you like, the scope and the breadth of the survey, because I think it's, what's really interesting for me is that you've utilized your own sort of customer base, not necessarily to survey them about their own satisfaction, but actually to get them to opt in to say, let's pool our data and then learn for our own benefit, our collective benefit. So I think that's, it's a great thing that that you're doing. I guess my question is that, apart from world domination, where do you go next for the survey?
Well, I think the original inspiration for doing this, a couple of notes. Now, first of all, we don't think of it as a survey because it's not really based on opinion. It's more based on actual support data. Okay. So, and I think we're inspired by a number of the web companies that come before us. Google is a great example. I used to work at the phone company, and we had a directory sales. So we sold the Yellow Pages, the big fat book of, where do I find my local dry cleaner?
Yeah.
And I remember that we used to go to every company and we'd lay out the Yellow Pages and we'd convince people to go, buy a full page advertisement. And then everybody would say, well, how much will I get for that? And we couldn't answer that question. And then Google came around, and their main innovation, as we know, was on online ads and a really open bidding platform.
Uh-huh.
So Google not only makes it easier for you to advertise, but they teach you how much to pay for an advertisement based on their data. So they tell you, if you want to buy, this particular keyword, here's how much it's going to cost.
Right.
So they make, they've got a very effective world domination strategy, but they also, educate their customers on how to do business with them. And ultimately the benefit is that it's much easier and more efficient to buy advertisement than it was a generation ago. We want to do the same thing with customer support data. So we want to help our customers understand how to optimize their customer support, how to drive operational efficiency, how to drive scale, and more importantly, how to provide great customer experience.
Okay.
And we want to do that with the data. So what we're doing with the benchmark is, adding more metrics that help educate our customer base. And these metrics don't only exist in a quarterly report that we put out on our website. They're actually deeply integrated in our product.
Yeah.
So that you can track customer satisfaction. You can track the self-service score. You can track time to first response. And we want to continue to educate our customers how to optimize these and how to drive better performance. So, we're in the great position to be sitting on data from over 30,000 customers, over 25 or 30 million support interactions a month, and over 200 million end customer data. So we look at that as a responsibility to be able to sort of aggregate that information out and then pass that back to our customers to help them make better choices in terms of how they support their customers.
That's cool, guys. I mean, that's great work. I mean, I think it's a really simple but yet obvious approach, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So
and the other thing is that the one thing we noticed is that our customer support is getting so much more broad than it used to be. Mm-hmm. So the other thing that we're doing is developing sort of quarterly focus areas. So this quarter, we're talking a lot about customer self-service. Conceptually, how do you enable, how do you, be where the customers are, enable them to help themselves. In future quarters, we're going to dig more deeply into customer engagement. Uh-huh. How do you track customer satisfaction, net promoter score, and really understand how to more effectively and proactively target customers. And then in the past, we've sort of published metrics around just core customer support, operational efficiency of incidents and tickets and response time and the like. So that's definitely something we want to keep doing.
Fantastic. So is there anything else that I'm just conscious of looking at time now. Is there anything else that you think that we've not discussed about the report that you'd like to highlight before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think that the last thing I would say would be on the data that we've been able to aggregate around mobile preferences. Mm-hmm. So we live in San Francisco, and we're very much in a technology bubble. And from our perspective, it seems that everybody's on a mobile device. So one thing we wanted to do was to actually look across all of our customer base and see where are consumers seeking out support from their companies, uh-huh. And we're able to track through the data whether those requests are coming via mobile devices, via regular, almost ironically legacy laptops and desktop computers, mm-hmm. And it's fascinating to see that mobile as the preferred platform is growing dramatically.
Right.
So right now it's about 25% of all customer self-service users were on mobile in Q2, which is up from about 16% previously.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. So it means a quarter of all interactions are now coming from mobile devices. And if you think about we're talking software companies, manufacturing companies, internal, retailers, IT services, gaming companies. That's a pretty staggering number.
Yeah.
And then if you look at some of the industries like media as an example, 80% of all media customers, and we have quite a few media companies as customers, 80% of their consumers are coming through mobile devices.
Right.
So we talk a lot about this shift of information and shift of consumer preferences, and it's sort of staggering to see how fast that's happening, and that's not just our opinion. That's actually consumer behavior that we're seeing. That's a pretty dramatic shift.
I think that is the thing. I mean, our mobile devices, particularly smartphones, are becoming our windows on the world, and they are the most pervasive and, if you like, high-powered piece of technology that's in pretty much everybody's hands. I don't know how many smartphones or how many mobile phones there are around the world, but it's huge penetration. So that's not surprising. It's great to have the data to say actually the shift is there, it's happening, and it's accelerating in a way.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you. I mean, that's fascinating stuff, and really interesting, particularly the trends with mobile and self-service, but also the uptick in customer service in different industries and also different countries and just globally generally. And that's really helpful, and when I share that with my my readers and listeners and things, I think they'll find that really, really fascinating really fascinating and interesting, and useful. So I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to have a chat to you about it this afternoon.
Yeah, no, it's good to talk to you as well, and I really appreciate your blog, by the way, and sort of the increasing focus on customer engagement and customer, understanding on almost an outside-in perspective on companies. It's really beneficial for our customer base to have people like you out there sort of banging the drum on that. So sounds like we're fellow travelers in a lot of ways.
Oh, I think so. I'm banging the drum and have got a foghorn and a loud hailer as well.
Yes, excellent.